Today's conversation is based on this mind map that I created to further emphasize this concept of unwavering. Wavering is the act of, we can say, not being faithful. Now, we've been discussing the word faith, and Neville says it really well when he says, faith is loyalty to the unseen reality. Now, on this journey to bringing forth success, we have a vision. And you've probably heard me say this many times, and I'll say it again, only from different perspectives to emphasize the depth of this meaning of unwavering. If faith is loyalty to the unseen reality, then it is steadfast. It's an unflinching stance. It's, you could say, determination, a conviction that what you desire to see brought forth will be brought forth. There is no uncertainty in that assumption. There is no disassociation to the vision in any shape or form on the journey to its fulfillment. Or as Neville states it, assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. So let's get a little deeper into it. This discussion is going to be emphasized in three parts. Assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled. What is faith? We're going to get deeper into the discussion on the concept of faith. And how not to waver. You've probably heard me say this many times. I say unwavering, lighthearted faith, or unwavering, lighthearted conviction. Or in my Instagram posts, you might hear me say unwavering faith. The truth is I don't have to add that word in there, unwavering. When we're speaking of faith and what it represents, adding the word unwavering seems like an excess thing to do if we really understand what faith means. So when we say unwavering faith, we use it to support what it actually really means. The truth is, if you maintain faith, there would be no wavering. There would be no interpretations from within that would relate to anything that shows up on this experience as disharmony and not in relation to and not in contribution to bringing forth your vision. It is that level of fidelity and loyalty and conviction in that outcome. In the last video, I talked about the concept of weakness. Now, when we're referring to weakness, in this context, we're not referring to weakness in any other way outside of thought. Weakness of thought, or specifically put, thoughts of weakness. The truth of the matter is, you are divine perfection. From the origins of you being brought forth into this world, you were, are, and always will be divine perfection. Along the journey, we can have these interpretations that lead us to believe that we are weak. And to prove it in an equation that we are not, we stay committed to the vision of what we desire to be seeing in this outer world experience, five sensory world, by maintaining loyalty to that vision, no matter what the circumstance, or accurately put, the interpretation of the circumstance may lead us to believe that we are weak. So let's bring up another quote from As a Man Thinketh as we get deeper into this conversation, which is in essence a Neville Goddard-based discussion, but I want to weave this in here because I believe it's very related. He says, in all human affairs, there are efforts, and there are results. And the strength of the effort is the measure of the result. Now, when we're talking about effort, we're talking about faith. Because I'm a huge fan of the concept of Wu Wei, which is sometimes referred to as action through inaction, or the deliberate doing nothing for a reason, or knowing when to act, why to act, and how to act, or bringing forth a result without action, because sometimes that can be the case. All of this is done from the perspective of less resistance, otherwise referred to as effortless. Now, when he's saying efforts, what he's referring to, because the book is titled As a Man Thinketh, he's referring to the efforts of thought, as in accurate thinking. We want to have more accurate thinking, as in whatever we're interpreting on the journey to the realization is accurate. And then from there, the end, which is that vision, wills the way. Some of you might go through my videos and hear me mention a few times that I've been involved with a partnership for many years with Iris Reading. In fact, Paul, the founder of Iris Reading, had a conversation about speed reading. I'll put a link in the description to that. And I did many live events and workshops and partnerships with Iris Reading. But some of you might not know how that particular story came to be from a person that I met many years ago through an internet forum, and we agreed to meet and mastermind and build a connection, and fascinating guy. So I reached out to him and I said, let's meet up for coffee downtown. And I was driving about maybe an hour and a half away from the suburbs into Toronto. And it was extremely snowy and icy at the time. And I knew that some way, somehow, that was part of the vision. The life that I'm living now, plus this life that I'm living now, is part of another bridge of incidents to a realization of another vision. And from that faith, I recognized that him and I were meant to meet. That was part of the journey. I knew it. Now, on my way to Toronto, one of the things that ended up happening, very interesting, was I lost control because of the snow and the icy conditions. And my car started to slide. And it was sliding directly to the bumper of the car in front of me. And on the right-hand side was somebody making a right-hand turn, and there was this little tiny gap that only if I skimmed each side of the mirror of each car, or barely skimmed, I would be able to make it through and pass that circumstance. Something interesting happened, and this was very distinct, and I remember it. It felt like I lost control of my arms, and it appeared that the steering wheel seemed to control itself via my arms, but I no longer had these control of my arms. So intuitively, I was able to steer this car through both of these cars, looking at each of the drivers as I passed them, as they were in shock, that I managed to make it through without hitting any of the cars, thus making it to Toronto to meet him. Now, what ended up happening was we built a good friendship and a connection, and it led to many business deals and other deep insights and perspectives. We had many profound conversations. We also had really great times. Like, we would go out and just have the most amazing times. Now, the thing about it was, later on, he went back to England, where he was from, and then he came back again. I didn't hear from him in about a year. He came back while I was building my IT business, and he sat down with me and he said, listen, I'm doing this new personal development exercise. And at that time, we were very inspired by Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Work Week. So we were all into this whole lifestyle design experimenting thing. And he came down and he said, look, I'm going to try something that I've never done before. I don't have much money. He had very minimal amount of money. He's like, the goal is to come here with nothing and start from scratch and work my way up into something. I don't know how it's going to turn out, but it's going to be a lot of fun. Now, what he was demonstrating also was unwavering faith in that assumption. Some way, somehow, he was going to figure it out. So we had a conversation. He said, what are you doing right now to earn in business and so forth? And I said, Craigslist seems to be an interesting source for leads. A while back, I actually made a video on my channel. I'll put a link in the description. It's a very old video about getting work from Craigslist many years ago, because during that time, I discovered that there was these companies that were posting in the gigs section, technical gigs section, for little IT services that they needed help with, such as virus removal or fixing a wireless network issue or something like that. And I knew that if I go over there and resolve this, that I would be able to offer them other business and build a relationship with them, and they would turn into ongoing clients. So I was getting ongoing business by, in the business world, we call this delivering on the front end and creating lifetime client value-based offers that is designed to facilitate ongoing buying relationships with the client. Simply put, lifetime client value-based dealings. All again through the bridge of incidents, intuitively following this same advice and information that I'm providing on this channel. And he ends up being part of the bridge of incidents. So he took that advice, and I didn't talk to him for about 5 or 6 months. We were doing our own thing. Then he said to me, hey, you want to meet up? We're going out for drinks. Want to meet up? And so I met up with him, and he had this beautiful condo that he was now renting downtown Toronto, high floor and everything like that. And I said, man, like, you managed to figure this out really quick. He's like, yeah, I got a job working for Randstad now, which is a consulting firm. I said, how did you get that? He's like, well, one thing just led to the next, and he was making a good salary. And he's like, I need to stop doing this other thing that I'm doing right now. And I said, what is it that you're doing? He said, well, I'm teaching these speed reading workshops. And I said, wow, speed reading, that's something that helped me tremendously when I was in 2005 in corporate. I learned how to speed read. In fact, my boss at the time said to me that if you want to be successful, you want to be able to process large amounts of complex information really fast. And one of the things that helped him a lot was to accelerate his reading speed, his comprehension, his retention through very specific strategies and ways of doing it, which, by the way, Tim Ferriss was big on that because he used to teach that a while back. Now, I took that to heart, and I learned how to do this process, and I also developed a big passion for reading. Before that, I hated reading. Now, all of a sudden, I was reading a lot, and I was integrating a lot, and success was increasing as a result of the knowledge plus experience and the integration of the knowledge that I was acquiring. So I found it to be very valuable, and it was very inspiring to me that he was teaching others how to do this. I saw it as a valuable service, and I said to him, I want to do that. And then when I asked him, how did he get that deal? He said to me that he found that deal on Craigslist. So Paul had posted on Craigslist looking for an instructor. Now, Paul and I, when we met, we would laugh about how I actually gave him the advice back in the days to go and look on Craigslist for some kind of opportunity that would lead to something like this. And he found that opportunity. He moved forward with that opportunity. And then he referred me to Iris Reading, which was the opportunity that he found as a result of taking my advice. And then it turned into this whole journey of a relationship with Paul. Talk about bridge of incidents. I saw a benefit of not only doing that as another potential business opportunity and forming a partnership with Iris Reading, because I knew eventually I was going to create my own trainings and so forth, because I wanted to go down that path. But I also saw it as an opportunity to practice public speaking and also step out of my comfort zone, because I was going to present to an audience, 50 to 100 people, in a hotel downtown Toronto, Saturday and Sunday. And at that time, Groupon was running all these promos, and Iris was running a lot of promos on Groupon, so they were having a lot of people joining these events. And he didn't want to do it anymore. So I said, what if I do it? He's like, sure, I'll connect you. And then he connected me with Paul, and we worked it out. And next thing you know, I'm doing the thing. Now, if I wasn't loyal to this vision, if he wasn't loyal to this vision, then harmoniously the bridge of incidents would not have intertwined in a way that was in perfect harmony. That's why Neville once said in his lectures, he said, dwell in the end and you can hurt no one. And I'm paraphrasing because I don't have the exact quote. Now, all of that is thought. So when we relate back to this James Allen quote here, the effort is persistence in the assumption, unwavering, lighthearted conviction. And we go into this state of mind, the ideal state of mind, via a form of prayer or affirmation or self-talk or visualization, or as Neville states it here, if I could define prayer for anyone and put it just as clearly as I could, I would simply say, it is the feeling of the wish fulfilled. If you ask, what do you mean by that? I would say, I would feel myself into the situation of the prayer answered, or the answered prayer, and then I would live and act upon that conviction. Things show up on the journey. I had no idea that that was going to be a very fun, flow-based, joy-based bridge of incidents to the realization. But it shows up. You meet the most interesting people, you have these interesting experiences, and it intertwines their vision, your vision. I call this spirit of harmony, benefit for you, others, divine, and evolution. This is all a result of maintaining faith. This is a very practical understanding, and we all have this, we need to reflect on our own journey, of the idea of maintaining loyalty, unwavering conviction. And as stated, I don't have to use the word unwavering, but we do it because that's how we speak. But the truth is, when it comes to faith, it is only loyalty, assurance, certainty, fidelity that it is so. And he said, I would try to sustain it without effort, that is. I would live and act as though it was already a fact, knowing that as I walk in this fixed attitude, my assumption will harden into fact. Well, we prove it in equation. And the only thing that could show up is what James Allen referred to in the book As a Man Thinketh, which we call inaccurate thinking, and as he refers to it as effort. It's certain thought processes that we're having that we are identifying a force-based meaning to the different people, environments, circumstance, and information that reveals itself on the journey to the fulfillment. So when he says sustain it without effort, it is maintaining the ideal state of mind, number one. Number two, maintaining the flow, or deeper levels of flow, which we call stage of involution, as discussed in the book The Kabbalion, or autotelic, which is a deep state of flow. Or simply put, maintaining an inner voice dialogue that is in harmony and seeing whatever shows up as in harmony in contribution via inner conversation. And if we need to, we could turn them into affirmations and repeat them to themselves, or as I like to do, put them in audio files and play them over and over again. Because the truth is this is a form of inner conversation. I'm a representation of a part of your consciousness that has externalized in this form that is affirming certain inner dialogue. And such is the case with different audios, or books, or people, or environment, or circumstance. It is revealing the concept of self and the interpretations, and in this discussion, we're referring to faith, the level of conviction, which faith is unwavering conviction, and again, we'll strip out that word, unwavering, it is conviction in the vision. So that's what it's meant by assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled. If you assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled and you know it's done, there would not be, so as long as you have faith, any kind of interpretation that what you desire to see brought forth will not be brought forth, or any kind of interpretation that whatever shows up in the five sensory experience is in denial of that assumption, is breaking your flow, is not operating from a place of love, which is loyalty to the vision. He says, assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled and you have brought the only acceptable gift. He says, all states of mind other than that of the wish fulfilled are an abomination. They are superstition and mean nothing. So you're on the journey to the realization of your vision. You stay in faith, you live in faith. If you have certain beliefs, interpretations, and assumptions about anything that shows up, you change those interpretations within. You are the only interpreter of the reality that you live in right now. And you're guided from within to the accurate interpretation. In the depths of our subconscious is the divine realm, and we can receive the interpretations from within. We were always doing it. When we were children, we were doing it. In different stages of our life, we were doing it. When we're in flow, we tend to do it a lot. When we have a lighthearted conviction of that end result, which represents faith, then we receive those interpretations within. And they can also, as discussed in the last video, and I recommend watching it, when we brought up that quote from Florence Scovel Shinn, they may also externalize as people, books, and experiences in the outer world that reveal the conviction or lack thereof within. And also the way, or certain insights and perspectives. We also refer to this in this understanding of working with the power of mind as signs and synchronicities. And he states, all things exist and the mystery of their creation must be understood in terms of faith. But faith does not give reality to that which is unseen. Faith is loyalty to the unseen reality. Only in this sense can the meaning of faith be understood. So we sense each day, we can feel it. What is the level of loyalty and conviction in our vision? Simply put, are we living in faith? Or are we living in something that we may interpret as faith, but it's not pure acceptance, conviction, and loyalty? How do we know? Based on our interpretations, the inner dialogue. What's the conversation that we're having when we're interacting with people? Lately, I've been asked by a lot of companies to help them when it comes to working with their teams. And this information from Neville Goddard has been very helpful as far as integration goes into their culture. Now, one of the things that we mention is that, and we've learned this many times in personal development, even prior to reading Neville's information, you go first. The change starts within. The concept of self and the interpretation of the self in harmony and in relation to the people is what creates the change. I asked them, I said, how do you interpret the team? And then they say some disempowering thing about the person or this person's fault and all these different assumptions, interpretations. Now, from that, we say, okay, is this the team moving forward? Do you know that if this is the team that you're going to move forward with? They said, that's the team I'm going to move forward with. I said, okay, so you know it's the team you're moving forward. You said it with faith. You know it to be done. Then what's happening as you move forward are these interpretations that you have with them. What are the interpretations? And one by one, they reveal these interpretations and we change them. And then they say, where are you coming up with these interpretations from? I said, well, I could say that I'm coming up with these interpretations, but I could assure you they're coming from the depths of the subconscious. Some of it is based on reference experience. Certainly, I do have a lot of experience in management consulting and business building, but I'm telling you that as I reflect upon what is being discussed, I'm not looking at it that you have a problem and they have a problem. I see it from the perspective of you are that version of the person that you see yourself to be. They are the version of that person that they see themselves to be in relation to that vision. And as long as I maintain that assumption, that faith, the answers are revealed within. We call this incurrent. Incurrent. We talked about this in the last video. He says, having been promised that if they could believe it would come to pass, they believed and received the promises. But no one knew the fulfillment of the promise until it broke through in one. Then he knew that by the same act of faith, he could leave this sphere and enter the heavenly one. So what is this act of faith? The act of faith is in mind. The act of faith was always in its origins in mind first, before it externalized as a behavioral act of faith. So then they say, what do you say to them? I'll say, you'll know what to say. In that moment, it will be revealed and you will express it. And you'll wonder where it came from. And other people will say, I can't believe you said that. No different than that experience with driving the car to meet my friend. Where did that come from, that I lost control of my arms and I couldn't steer the steering wheel? Where did that come from? Now, I've had many experiences like that. And when I've spoken to others, I also realize that many have also had these experiences. It's just not often discussed for whatever the reason may be. But we have this. And that power is found within. And it is facilitated through faith. He says, faith contains a power, and it is perfectly articulated in this next quote from one of his discussions. He says, faith contains a power which can link you to a world where you are eternal. Paul tells us to put our faith not in the works of men, but in the power of God. And no earthly power, be it atomic, megatons, or multi-megatons, can compare to that power. So we prove it in an equation. We observe where we are not maintaining this faith, and we change our interpretations and our assumptions and our beliefs in relation to. Faith is loyalty to the vision. Or as he states here, I would strive to hold my attention on the activities of the day in unwavering concentration so that not for one moment would the concentration slacken. This is an exercise a training for higher adventures of the soul. It is no light labor, a training for the higher adventures of the soul. Now, attention is happening in thought. If you ask a person, why did you get distracted? They'll give you a reason. If you say to them, is that a valid reason? They might assume that to be a solidified valid reason. If you give them another perspective, they might be open to that suggestion. And if they identify with that suggestion, they find themselves not being distracted anymore. So again, this goes back to what James Allen said here. In all human affairs, there are efforts and there are results. Efforts is the thought, and the results is the effect. And the strength of the effort is the measure of the result. So we're not talking about force. We're talking about presence of mind to observe the inaccurate interpretations. You don't have to do this all day long. Do it a little bit more so each day and see it as in harmony towards your vision, whatever shows up. Practice it. Find it within. As stated in the conversations I was having, they can find the same answers through me, or they can find the same answers through themselves, because it's connected in the superconscious as the one mind. And all of this is an externalization of the one mind, expression of the one mind. You've heard me say this many times. We're individual expressions of the same mind. The source remains the same. Daring to assume that all things are possible to imagine, put this one reality to the extreme test by assuming you are the person that you would like to be. Your reasonable mind and outer senses may deny it, but I promise you, if you will persist, you will receive your assumption. So, we're segmenting here. The spiritual self, otherwise referred to as the fourth dimensional self, sees all things, knows all things, and lives in faith and is eternal. The natural self has interpretations, 5 sensory interpretations, that seem to not be in alignment, for whatever the reason may be, with intuition, which is guided from within. That's what he's referring to when he says your reasonable mind and outer senses may deny it. He's talking about that aspect of us that seems to believe that this 5 sensory world has more power than your mind and the world within, the divine realm that dwells in your mind. That's the interpretation. And we can prove this in equation and live by it more so each day. And you'll see it. On this level, he says, you can be rich if that is what you desire. But remember, the story of Jesus is persistent assumption. You can persist in the assumption that you are wealthy. Now, you have an assumption. I am this, I am that. You identify with it in your mind's eye, because your mind's eye sees eternity. That's facilitated by the fourth dimensional self. You select in your imagination, and the outer world rearranges to reflect that imagination. That is faith. Now, we have a journey, because we have destination, we got journey. I always recommend seeing the journey and destination as one. Why? Because then you don't feel a void, a separation, a contrast that creates unnecessary, inaccurate thinking or identification with certain interpretations about the 5 sensory experience that seem to break the assumption. The key word is seem to break the assumption. Doesn't actually break the assumption unless our interpretation creates that kind of facilitation as the day-to-day experience that reveals it in the bridge of incidents. So we find the guidance within. And I refer to this as the inner voice, intuition, hunches, inspirations. For me, I'm very auditory, so I resonate a lot with inner voice. I go in and have an inner voice conversation with the fourth dimensional self, who sees the vision, who is that person in the vision, and recognizes how to communicate to me in a way. And I'm having this conversation in my own mind. Napoleon Hill in Think and Grow Rich has a way of doing this called invisible counsel. I did a discussion on that. I'll put a link in the description. To allow this in current of understanding to flow within into the conscious mind so we can understand, assess, reinterpret, and then identify with those accurate interpretations and assumptions. And he stated the word in current means giving passage to a current that flows inward. So then what we're doing is we're practicing what the Bible refers to as repentance. Because you've gone into a state, you've selected the state, and you're on the journey to the fulfillment of that state. When you have a business that you want to create, an entrepreneurial endeavor, and you know this end result is fulfillment of that vision through the facilitation of whatever way you want to see it brought forth, whatever product or service, and you see the people in your mind's eye receiving that value, benefiting from it, you are now the conduit of divine expression, as discussed in the last week's Neville video. And then all you do is practice what the Bible refers to as repentance on the journey, which is a radical change of attitude. That means that the thinking of before that is not in harmony with the vision is no longer relevant. Or as he states here, start now to practice what the Bible calls repentance, which is a radical change of attitude. No matter what it is, if it does not conform to your ideal, change it by subjectively approaching your goal, remaining faithful to it, and no earthly power can keep you from attaining it. So why is it then that we have these interpretations that we won't achieve our goal, we won't bring forth the success, we'll have all this unnecessary complexity and convolution be brought forth on the bridge of incidents to the realization? Well, upon reflection and my own experience and working with others, we go back to what James Allen said here. In all human affairs, there are efforts, and now we're relating efforts to thinking, and then there are results. As stated, this is a quote from the book, As a Man Thinketh. And the strength of the effort is the measure of the result. So it's our thinking. And then he says, chance is not. Gifts, powers, material, intellectual, and spiritual possessions are the fruits of effort. They are thoughts completed. Objects accomplish, visions realize. Let's zoom in here for a second. They are thoughts completed, as in seen all the way till completion. As in, we didn't waver in the assumption along the way. And if we did, that's okay. No need to beat ourselves up, shame ourselves. We need to go back into what we see ourselves doing in our imagination and live in and from that vision. And also, to further support this journey, my recommendation is to understand what these recurring interpretations and beliefs are, which may be rooted based on certain experiences or, accurately put, interpretations of experiences in the past, and change them. Change how we relate to them, or change the actual experience. Neville refers to this as revision. One of the most powerful reasons why we revise is so we don't play out that unnecessary, complex, and convoluted theater on the bridge of incidents to the fulfillment, so we can have more of a flow-based journey to the realization of our vision. So that's the effort, is changing the interpretations, the assumptions, and seizing that vision. I mean, really seizing it. As Sun Tzu said, opportunities multiply as they're seized. Why do opportunities multiply as they are seized? Well, one of the reasons why is seizing can be looked at as loyalty to the vision. And when a vision is brought forth, you recognize how this journey plays out in theater, as you had removed the disempowering interpretations by staying committed all the way to completion. And then what you start to notice is you can bring forth even more visions. So you commit, you see in your mind's eye another vision, you bring it forth, and you continue this journey to bring forth more of what you desire from a place of flow and understanding. And the understanding of faith between vision and reality, and anything in between, unnecessary complexity and convolution, can be excluded out of consciousness via our thinking, our interpretations, our assumptions. If you want to copy this mind map, the link is in the description. Thank you very much for watching. I'll talk to you soon. Take care.